Ukulele Tales with John Atkins.
Hello, it's me, the ukulele teacher, aka John Atkins, of course. Well, it's great to be back here on the podcast, and I'm so grateful to all of you for checking out that Cynthia Lynn episode last time. I've had some really great and lovely feedback about the show, and don't forget there's an extra 25 minutes of conversation up right now on my Patreon page, patreon.com/UkeTeacher, between me and Cynthia, if you want to get a bit more of an insight into Cynthia's creative thought process. It's really interesting stuff, and as I think I said last time, you do get a bit more of a look at the real Cynthia Lynn, so it's well worth a listen if you enjoyed that episode. This week, though, is something very different, and for me and Percy at least, something very exciting too. Now, if anyone is living in the UK and has a kid under the age of, let's say, 5, you will definitely have heard of Nick Cope. With an ear for a catchy melody and a family-friendly lyric, Nick came to prominence during the 2020 lockdown with his CBeebies show, Nick Cope's Popcast, shown throughout the UK on the BBC. Now, if you've ever had to sit through kids' TV with young children, you'll know that it's not always a fun time. But Nick Cope, a real-life musician, dad and granddad, has got you covered, making his show every bit as enjoyable and accessible for grown-ups as it is for the target audience of youngsters. Accompanied by his faithful whippet Norman, Nick's show is filled to the brim with catchy songs like Ralph the Rusty Robot, The Baby's Done a Poo, and Barbara Had a Brother, that are both fun to sing along to, yet somehow also pack a genuine emotional punch. Believe me, as someone who's had to sit through hundreds of hours of the likes of Blippi and Cocomelon, the Nick Cope podcast was a very refreshing change, and something that both Percy and I were very happy to watch again and again. There's even an episode about helping out at the local charity shop, which, if you follow me on Instagram, is something that you'll know that I also love to do. Anyway, I was really excited to get the chance to chat with Nick recently, as not only is he now a famous BBC granddad, perhaps the only one in fact, but back when I was at uni, he was also a famous indie rock star in his band, the Candy Skins. A big thank you to Carla Music for sponsoring the show. Don't forget you can get 10% off any Carla ukulele or guitar, or anything on the website, by visiting my special link, carlabrand.com/UkeTeacher. But now, here's part 1 of my chat with Nick Cope. And now you're in the middle of a big tour at the moment. How's it going?
Well, the way we do it, because people say, "Oh, good luck with the tour," but I mean, we just pick gigs when we can, really, because obviously, playing for families, we can only play at weekends or half terms and holidays, so we have to sort of do. I mean, even if you did every weekend, that's only sort of like 52 dates, but sometimes we do 2 shows in a day, so we can get around a little bit. But I mean, that's the idea, is just to get as many gigs as we can and keep sort of entertaining people over the weekends and the holidays, really.
Amazing. I mean, you've got gigs lined up until sort of September next year or something, so you must be doing something right.
Yeah, well, they seem to be coming in now. I mean, yeah, it's really helped having the TV show. I mean, because I used to play festivals and play concerts up and down the country, but you'd sort of get in touch with them, say, could we come and play at your theatre? And then they just wouldn't return your call. So it seems to be there's a lot of power in the BBC.
It seems like it, yeah. Well, in fact, some of the listeners might not know, but this is by no means your first time on tour. You were in a band in the 1990s called the Candy Skins.
That's correct, yes.
So what's it like touring again now as a solo act instead of part of a band?
It's sometimes. I mean, when we went up to Scotland at the beginning of the year and doing lots of travelling and going back to back, sort of doing gigs back to back, staying in sort of B&Bs or whatnot, and then getting to the gig in the morning, and then it felt, I remember this, and it felt really fun. Not that it isn't fun anyway, but that sort of element to it of sort of a lot of travelling, and because usually we do like one-offs or whatever, we might do a Saturday and Sunday together, but because it was over a half term, we'd done a lot of travelling it was quite reminiscent of those days. But it's just me and my other half, Amanda. We just travel around doing it. It's just really really good fun. I mean, I spend a lot of my time in the dressing room on my own, pondering before we go on.
Do you?
There's
Yeah, yeah,
there's no one to have a sort of any
yeah.
banter with. But it's been it was really good fun. No,
Yeah.
it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, the Candy Skins I think are a little bit overlooked maybe, but I was a fan after seeing you guys on what was it? I think TFI Friday back in the day.
Yeah, that was our big week of exposure. That was we had
Right.
that
Well, yeah,
we yeah. Well, basically we had I think we had a 10-year career where we started off in America. So we got American record deal with
yeah.
Geffen
You
Records,
had
and
a couple of
we
top
toured.
20s in the US, didn't you, at the
We
beginning?
in college radio, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That was amazing. That was just such a laugh. That was really really good. But in doing that, we had sort of neglected getting a fan base back in our home country. So when we got back and things went a little bit pear shaped, we didn't really have an audience. So we had to sort of start up again in our hometown of Oxford by building up a fan base and then putting out more records and whatever. And so that sort of um, it all sort of came together for that one week. I remember we did
Right.
some radio shows in London, and we put lots of singles out on that. What is the fourth album? I can't remember, to be honest with you. And we had the TFI Friday, which came up as well. But we never quite made it onto Top of the Pops, which was a
Oh,
shame. We
yeah.
never quite got
Yeah.
there. But we had a top 30 hit. It was top 30. I think it was top 30 with that song Monday Morning. Yes, that was
Yeah.
cool.
So what led to you making the change from sort of, I guess, indie rock stardom to songs for kids and families?
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't happen very quickly. It took a bit of time because the bands, we sort of split the band up, and we weren't really doing anything for a while, and I'd sort of exhausted myself basically creatively.
Yeah.
You know, I knew there would be a great gaping hole missing. I mean, there was in sort of like from writing songs and performing and stuff like that. But because when you've sort of done it for so long and tried so hard and not quite got there, you can't just keep picking yourself up and going for it. So had a bit of time off really without knowing what to do, but knowing that I wanted to do something creative. And Amanda, my other half, she started up a sort of Montessori childcare business from the house. And so she was doing that. We were looking after people's children, and I registered as well, so we could work together. And it was a very successful business. And at the same time, I was doing sort of odd, catering jobs and stuff like that, just to pay the bills and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And in sort of looking after the children while our other two were at school, because we had two small children. We got three children. Our oldest was obviously looking after herself, but our other two, they were sort of quite young. They were going off to primary school, so it was quite chaotic. But the younger children we were looking after in our charge, I would entertain them after lunch by getting my guitar out and just sort of making up silly little songs. And one of the children was the daughter of the people that ran the Oxford Montessori schools, and a place came up for a music teacher
Oh.
to sort of do sort of music lessons with the nursery and the early years classes. And they said, Nick, would you like to do that? Because they knew that I was in a band and all sorts of stuff. And I said, oh, do you know what? I'll give it a go, because I've been messing around at home, making up a few songs and stuff. And that was the moment I thought, oh, this could get me back into making music and being creative and playing my guitar. And that was it. And that was over 10 years ago. And it just went from there. I started getting songs, writing songs, and then putting on shows at local community centres. And word got around, and I'd sell CDs, and I started doing theatres, and then it's all gone from there, really.
Yeah, well, that's amazing because so I guess you were sort of treading the boards for quite a while with those kid songs until the TV show came along, right?
Yeah,
So how
yeah.
long did it sort of take between? I mean, how long did it take to get the TV show going then? Like 10 years or something, right? Or,
Well, no, I mean, because that I was approached. It was over a period of time, sort of getting in contact with the various people that were involved in putting it all together. Because there's a lovely guy called Glenn Hayward, who got in touch with me because he was a fan of the Candy Skins, because he was at university in Oxford back in the day, and he's been in bands and stuff, and he runs a digital design studio, an animation studio in Bath. So he got in touch with me on on Facebook because he'd seen the animations that I was doing when my son Bert. We were putting out animations for my kids' songs. And he saw those. He said, "Oh, these are really great. And I loved your band. I used to come and see you and stuff like that." And he said, "Look, one day we'll try and get together. We'll try and work something out so we can like pitch a television show or some animations together and stuff because I really like what you're doing." So I thought, "Oh, that'd be good." And then he invited me to see his studio. I thought, "This is amazing. They're just doing all this amazing sort of animations and stuff." And I just thought, this is a million miles away from what I'm doing to be sort of in the company of these sort of animators and stuff. And then lo and behold, a year or so later, I think he got some free time and he said, "Look, I've got this idea. I've pitching it to the Terrific Television, who are an amazing children's TV production company, and they pooled resources, and we all got together, the three parties, to discuss how we could sort of formulate a idea for a television program incorporating the songs and me and my dog Norman, and my grandson Remy at the time. This is before Alva, our granddaughter, came along. And then they went off pitching it to the BBC, and then that goes through the sort of, it's like the World Cup, really. You get through to the next round, and then so you get through to the next round, and then you have to repitch, and then sort of like they sort of say, "Oh, could you tweak this, or is that something like that?" And by the end of it, I thought, this is going really well. We're getting, it was like almost to the penultimate one, and I thought, the thing that's going to let this down is because I'm just some old fella playing. I don't really fit the sort of the remit for a CBeebies presenter. I don't sort of. I'm not sort of. I'm. It's just the way that I am. You can hear me talking now. It's sort of a bit sort of droll and sort of downbeat. And I thought, well, they're never going to go for that. But apparently they loved the fact that I was a granddad, and that was one of the selling points, as well as having a whippet called Norman. So and then that was it. And then we got the commission. Luckily, we got the show out just in time for the first series because that's when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I was basically in the editing suite in Maidstone. We just doing the last few edits on the series. And people were actually sort of evacuating London, so to speak. They were telling everybody to go home, and we didn't even know if it would actually get online. So the actual program would be able to, where the offices were that would actually sort of put the show on the server to get onto the BBC. We really didn't even know if we could actually do that. So, but luckily we got under the wire, and it was out there, and it was just by pure chance, and then we had a captive audience for those
those few months,
2 years.
2 years, of course it was 2 years. Yeah. I mean, that's when we sort of got into it, I think, my son and I. We loved watching it together during lockdown, and I think one of the things we loved about it as well is how you, like you just mentioned, you're bringing in your other family members, like your grandkids. What made you want to get them involved?
I think because I suppose it's sort of to do with like social media in a way. Because in the past, Remy, when he was little, they would come to gigs, but they still come to the shows, and he would bring his little ukulele, and he'd dress up as me, because other children used to do this as well. It wasn't just Remy. The children doing sort of like impressions of me. But Remy would come up, and then we just thought, why don't we get him up on stage and see if he'd like to do that? And we couldn't get him off, and then he'd come up and he'd have his little ukulele case that he'd bang his foot on, like I would bang my foot on. And then we thought, well, this is so lovely. People need to see this, so that we would just do some clips on YouTube and stuff to advertise certain gigs or just to share with our family. And obviously that was part of what I was doing, and that was one of the things that the BBC saw as a package for the commission. So this is how Nick interacts with children. We did a small film at a local primary school as well, with me talking to the children, like I do in the sessions as well, so they could see how I interact with them. It's also, I guess it was part of my CBeebies presenter CV, I suppose, to see what I could, this is how to present myself in the way that I work my music with children, I suppose.
Yeah. Actually, thinking about it, in the third series, there's one or maybe two episodes where you are in the same room as the kids. Because normally it's, sort of via the TV screen.
Yeah.
Was that because of COVID and stuff that you didn't do it in person?
No, the Popcast Planners. Yeah. The Popcast Planners was a new concept for the third series. I'm not sure. I think they wanted to sort of develop it a bit. I think they said it would be nice for Nick to sort of move out of that world into another world if that was possible. And we came up with that concept so that I could actually talk to the children, like, and it's sort of going full circle, because that's how I started working at schools and talking to children about the songs and stuff, formulated in a way, because we're making a television program. We couldn't just sort of freeform sort of jazz numbers and stuff.
Yeah,
So we
right.
have to,
Yeah.
so that was just an added sort of thing to sort of move the show on.
Yeah. So talking of, I guess, not being able to write freeform jazz numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
I would love to know a bit about your songwriting process, because I'm wondering sort of what's the difference between and I'm doing air quotes here, a kid's song and a proper song, because your songs seem to geniusly straddle both worlds.
That's very kind of you to say so. I guess that's what I'm trying to do. I am thinking about the grown-ups who are going to have to sit through these songs
again and again and again.
Right? Because the children do like to put them on. So I try and write the best possible song I possibly can. And I mean, the luxury, I guess, from doing, I call it family music rather than children's music,
right? Yeah.
Writing family songs, is you can dip into any genre. You can sort of not steal ideas, because that's plagiarism and you end up in court, but you can use ideas and styles and stuff, and you can jump from one to the other. You don't sort of necessarily have to keep to one sort of thing or another. So that's quite a free way of writing. But as I said, when I sit down, I'll get an idea, and then so it's an idea about a vampire. Okay, I'm going to write. This is going to be like the best vampire song that these grown-ups have ever heard, and I guess in that way it's going to be a good song. About the subject matter is going to appeal to the children, but it's going to be, hopefully it's going to be well constructed, and the lyrics are going to be interesting enough, and they're going to be clever enough for the parents to like it, and they'll all sit down together and enjoy it. I guess that's what I try and do. I don't always get it right, but that's my aim.
No, I think so. I mean, I think an amazing example of this is Ralph the Rusty Robot, which was like my son's favourite song of yours, until Stone in My Shoe, actually. That was his favourite one. And then, but weirdly, I showed a few episodes to my mum and dad, and my dad still loves Ralph the Rusty Robot and like sings it over the phone to me and stuff. So I don't know why, but yeah.
Well, we get lots of generations of families coming to the shows, grandparents and with their grandchildren, and they're all singing along, and they all love the show. I mean, that's sort of, in the way, the live performance is an extension of the songs, in a way that it appeals to everybody, because the way, I'm there sort of entertaining all the different ages in the crowd. So it's quite hard work, but it's very rewarding, because they, like we just did a couple of sold out shows in London at the weekend, and they do really appreciate it, the time and effort you put into to sort of entertaining the whole family. And it's lovely to see that they all enjoy it together, very much like you were saying, sitting down with your son. That's what they, especially over lockdown, it's become sort of part of their young lives, which is lovely.
Yeah. I can imagine what you're saying. I mean, I've played ukulele a few times at my son's nursery to sort of 10 kids or 12 kids, and it's like a blast. But I saw you at Bristol last year, and there were sort of hundreds of little kids, and it seemed like a tough gig, like a really tough gig,
Was this at the Redgrave Theatre?
Yeah.
That was a fun old show. I mean, it is. You have to just keep going. I mean, it depends. There's a lot of factors. It's because we have to. We were talking earlier on about going on tour and stuff. It's we have to pick the right sort of venue, and the Redgrave Theatre is a lovely theatre. But it's a lot to do with acoustics and stuff, because if you get a couple of children that are getting a little bit distracted and sort of crying and stuff, if it's not echoing around, because a room with really good acoustics is not probably the best thing, because it echoes. There's not too much room to run around and stuff, but we need some room to sort of to dance as well. And also they need to be able to see properly. So it's like a tiered theatre is really good. But it can be. I mean, and it's down to the sound, because it's just me and my guitar. So it's but we use animations and stuff to go along with the songs, and everybody seems to enjoy it.
Yeah. So talking of dads, by the way, which we were a few seconds ago, your dad was a famous actor, right?
Yeah.
Kenneth Cope. And me and my dad used to love watching him in Randall and Hopkirk when I was a kid. And now me and
Yeah.
my son love watching you together.
I know. It's
So,
weird, isn't it?
yeah. So what was it like sort of growing up with a famous dad?
I guess it's how you imagine. I mean, he was particularly famous in the sort of late 70s. No, around sort of the late 60s, early 70s. Around that time, he was in some of the biggest shows on television at the time. At the same time, strangely enough,
Yeah. Oh, Coronation Street as well, wasn't he?
it was in
Yeah.
Coronation Street, and
Yeah.
that was the week that was
Oh, okay.
the satirical
Yeah.
live program was on broadcast on Saturday nights on BBC. So he was on the biggest show on ITV and the biggest show on BBC, and then he went on to do around the whole coast, lots of writing and plays and stuff like that. Yeah, so he's. But yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, yeah, we would go to things. Everyone would say, "Is that Ken Cope? Is that Ken Cope?" And so you sort of get sort of. Yeah, you sort of just go along with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't really know any differently.
Amazing. Such a great guy and a real pleasure to speak to Nick. Again, if you are a parent in the UK, you really need to check out Nick Cope's Popcast on the BBC iPlayer. And if you're not, there's lots and lots of clips and songs available on YouTube. So have a look for it, and I really think you will enjoy them. I'll be back in a minute with more about Nick's musical side, including how he got started in music, whether or not he can actually read music, how he manages to write songs that appeal to audiences both young and old, and even one neat trick for helping your ukulele to stay in tune while you're recording. But before we get to that, I mentioned that my son Percy really enjoys Nick Cope's podcast over the last few years before he started school. So I told him that I was interviewing Nick and asked what his favourite song was. And, well... Hey Percy, do you still like Nick Cope?
Yeah.
Yeah? What's your favourite Nick Cope song?
The Candy Skin.
Wait, you like the Candy Skins?
Yeah.
What's your favourite Candy Skin song?
Mrs. Hoover.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yeah.
How does that one go?
Hey, Mrs. Hoover. Choo, 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 choo.
Wait, which do you like better, Nick Cope or Candy Skins?
Candy Skins.
Fair enough. And how old are you again?
5.
5, okay. Well, good choice. Anything you want me to ask Nick Cope?
How's Norman?
Okay, I'll ask him.
Okay. But how?
I'll phone him and ask him.
Norman is he's okay actually. He's quite an old dog, so he's been on many walks in his life, and he's sort of taking it easy, really, enjoying the sunshine when it's sunny out there, and yeah, he's doing okay, thank you.
So when did you start getting into music then?
I think we were skateboarders, I think, and then we were into a bit of heavy metal because of that. But, we love music anyway, so it was always around the house. But into playing it, I think it was definitely when we got into punk music, because then it seemed to be more accessible because you could learn a few chords and then start writing songs, which is exactly what we did. And we started forming a band.
Who's we? You and friends?
Well, it was me and the other Nick, who was ended up in the Candy Skins as well. We'd always been in the same band together, so we were in the same punk band.
Oh, wow. Were you school friends or something? Or?
Yeah, we were at school together. We lived in a small village just outside Oxford called Islip, and John, the drummer of the Candy Skins, he was there. Obviously, my brother was there because he was living in the same house, being my brother. Yeah. But he didn't join the band till a lot later on because he was a drummer, so he drummed in a different band. And then we got a different drummer. But John Halliday, who was the drummer in the Candy Skins, he lived in the village as well. So it's all straight. So some people came from this tiny little village. Yeah, and then we all got together a little bit later on. Although Nick and I, we carried on writing and stuff and doing different bands and stuff. And then it sort of merged into the Candy Skins a few years later.
So what was your first instrument? Was it the guitar? Or?
It was the guitar, yeah.
Yeah. Did you play any like classical stuff at all?
No, I've never had. I had just a few lessons from a lovely old lady in the village who taught me a C and a G7, I believe.
Okay.
I got.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything else was just battling away with bar chords to be able to play.
Amazing.
Sort
So
of,
real
bus
like
top
punk,
songs.
real punk
Yeah.
spirit then, yeah.
Yeah, I could never do solos. I've never learnt scales. I can't read music at all.
Oh,
I'm
really?
someone who plays guitar every day. I think I've got one of those brains that's not particularly good at remembering things. I can't
Okay.
remember my phone number or even notes on the guitar.
Wow.
I
Wow.
always
Yeah.
get confused about where's a B and a C. I just can't. If I'd have to sit down and try and remember, it just hasn't sunk in.
Yeah.
So I know where the songs are. I know where to play my songs, but I wouldn't know. I know open chords.
Yeah.
But once I transpose them, or on a ukulele, then it
Okay.
gets really good. It gets very confusing. So I'll play the ukulele, and that's when I put the ukulele parts on the songs. I'll just play around. I don't know what key I'm in or anything. I'll just play.
way.
Oh, that works.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
will work. And then I will, if it's that's not the right note there. So then I will just work a little pattern out and put that on.
So how does the ukulele come into your music then? Because you do use it in some of the songs of the podcast.
Yeah, it's there in most of the ones because all the songs that I record at home, I record the singing and the vocals and my ukulele parts, and then it gets passed around, especially during lockdown because everyone was sort of recording remotely. I mean, the drums were done in Germany in a small village down the road as well. And there's a small studio that we did like backing vocals and pianos and stuff, and other sort of people involved in it would use their own home studios and send stuff in, and we just it's a lovely guy called Roland Prythurch. He puts it all together and mixes it and stuff. But the ukulele, it's always something to embellish it. When I put my guitar down and the singing, I've got it as sort of in time and as in tune as I possibly can. Then I'll put some like rough ideas for other melodies or counter melodies that might be other instruments. But invariably, I say, "Oh, I just love that ukulele part." Then it has to stay being a ukulele part.
Wow, I'm really surprised by that, to be honest with you. Yeah. So do you don't use the ukulele to write then as a sort of compositional tool? Or anything?
I have done because I don't sort of specifically think, okay, I'm going to write a song on the ukulele. I'll play. I mean, I think it was the Toad song from the third series. I was just working on a little riff it's just sort of like open picking and stuff with a minor or something like that. And it's a G minor seventh, major seventh, I think. And I liked the way it sounded. It was just easy to pick, and I thought, oh, that's a nice riff. So then I transposed it onto the guitar, and then that became the riff for the Toad song. So I tend not to. I think our songs in the past I have written. I think the Bear song was written on the ukulele because it features the ukulele at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I usually use it for sort of inspiration and stuff. I can't think of anything. If it's just like an idea, because I'll play something different on the ukulele than I would do obviously on the guitar, especially if it's picking, because you're limited with the strings, especially with the high string.
Yeah. I'm just really curious about the guitar that you use because I was sort of Googling what guitar does Nick Cope play, and nothing was coming up. And then I was like zooming into these pictures. I was like, have you like sanded off the name or something?
No, that's for the BBC. You're not allowed to sort of put branding on, unfortunately.
I thought it might be something like that. Okay. So again, off the record, then
it's no big deal. What it is, it's just on when it's on screen, they can't sort of be having anything branded. It's like you wouldn't have a T-shirt with a label or shoes and stuff like that. It has to be sort of independent. No, that's a Collings that I use on the show, and that's what I use for most of my recording, which is sort of. Do you know Collings?
I don't actually, but it sounds amazing. Yeah,
it's American. It's quite a small guitar makers in Texas, I believe. They're very well respected, and I was always looking out for one. I saw the secondhand one in a local shop. Strangely enough, it needed a little bit of work on the fretboard and stuff. So it was a bit rattly, but it's really good. But I've got another one which I use live now, which is a Santa Cruz, which is slightly smaller, but with a wider neck, so it's good for picking and stuff.
Oh, cool.
That's
okay.
Good. I use that as well.
And what about the ukuleles that you use?
Well, I've accumulated lots of different ones right from the very beginning one, which I don't even think it's got a name on it, and that was my favourite one that I used to take to all the sessions. That was just like a little, a small little one, and then I've got there's a guy that helps me with guitars. I asked him to advise me on getting a decent one because I wanted one with a pickup in. So I got a Woodstock which is a concert ukulele, which is a pretty good make, and the pickup in it is okay, but it doesn't sound great when you plug it in.
Yeah, they often don't. Always, I think. Yeah,
because I saw Paul McCartney was playing his ukulele at Glastonbury last year. Was it?
Yeah.
And it sounded really good, but it had it mic'd. It had a mic on it that was stuck to the thing, which was. To try and do something like that because it's such a lovely sound. But if you put it, if you've got a sort of a pickup in it, and it's going through a big PA, it's just going to sound, it loses all its charm.
For sure, yeah.
And another one I got, so I bought. I mean, I'm always sort of, especially with recording, trying to get things in tune. And as you probably know, that ukuleles are really hard to get precisely in tune, especially if you're recording them and playing notes and stuff, especially near the nut. So I got a different one, which I've got it here, and that's a Lanakai.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a concert one as well, which has got a longer neck.
Yeah.
But I sort of got it. I got it on the internet, and I spoke to them about it. I said, "Is it really good at staying in tune? I need something that's going to stay in tune. Once you put your fingers down on it, because I end up sort of tuning guitars and ukuleles to the note that I'm playing it on, almost to get it in tune. It's quite a chore. But what I've found is because the nuts are always because there's quite a distance between the nut and the fretboard, especially on the first fret. So I if I'm playing it in normal tuning, I will tune it down half a step and then put a capo on it, because then that capo, you've got less room for the string to go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, yeah.
So when you're playing your open, when you like play whatever you might play, an F or something, the sort of the second string is going to go slightly sharp because you've got pressing it down.
Yeah.
So you sort of eradicate that to a certain degree. So there's a little tip there.
Yeah, interesting. I'll give that a go. Actually, yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Okay. I think Lanakai was the first uke that I had. Lanakai concert. Annoyingly, I think I gave it away to somebody, which I sort of
regret. A nice one actually. The Woodstock's a really nice one actually. It sounds really good.
I love how you can take some songs about like quite random and maybe even off-color topics, like babies doing poos, and make them like genuinely quite emotional. There's some very like sort of, I don't know, maybe I was just emotional being sort of a new dad and stuff, but there's some very like poignant stuff in your music. I wonder how you kind of get away with that sometimes.
I think I've always trying to I was looking at some of your wonderful work on YouTube, and you're playing Yoshimi Battles the Robots by Flaming Lips.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm trying to do in a way. It's like the way that the Flaming Lips will sing about it, but it gets you emotionally because of the chord changes and the melodies and stuff. That's all I'll try and do. So even if it's a song about babies doing a poo, I will try and get those notes or the melody or the whatever the feel of the song that you'll go, oh, I love that bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be it doesn't necessarily have to be subject matter, because I feel they like melodies as well. It's like the model by Kraftwerk, there's they do the keyboard bit. It's just wonderful. It's very very emotive. That I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the way that the notes change on that little keyboard riff that they have in there is really stirring and moving. So I just try and do that, even if it's a song about pooing or whatever.
Yeah, right. Well, I was going to say you go a bit near the knuckle sometimes, but at the Bristol show, you actually said that you had a song banned by the BBC.
That was in so many ways, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've been obviously writing to get enough songs for the two series back to back. So that's like 40 songs in about 2 years, which was it was quite tough, really, to be honest with you. But so it was a song. Yeah, in a way, it was sort of it was a sort of like song along the lines of Babies Done a Poo. It was about a song about which one was it? Oh no, that was that one. About
was it about like having where do babies come from?
Where do babies come from?
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, I was thinking about a different one. Yeah. They thought they really liked the song, but they couldn't use it because they would get complaints. It's not that they're stuffy in any way. They've just got to be careful about what they put out because they don't want to offend anyone. And it's quite, it's completely understandable that's what they do, because there's lots of people with different views out there. And you have to sort of play it carefully now and again. But it's amazing the stuff that they have. The subject matter of the songs, like, the baby's done a part. I thought, well, they're not going to do that. Or there's the burp in the dinosaur song. Are they going to let us do that? And it was, we were free to do all those sorts of things, which was amazing. Yeah, so that was really cool. So you take the rough with the smooth. Although I did really want that song to be in it, because I thought, I thought the song worked really well.
Are you going to put it out on YouTube or anything? Or?
Hopefully, I mean, I will put it out at some point. Yeah, definitely, cool. When I get a moment.
Cool. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, by the way, just that I haven't asked about or anything?
I don't think so. No, that if anybody wants to come to the shows, just have a look on the website, and they'll see all the events that are coming up, and I hope to see people out and about, and hopefully we'll get the new songs. The new podcast songs online at some point as well. That'll be really, really cool to get that out there so people can take those on their travels.
And
that's
cool.
it.
Amazing. Okay, Nick, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Yeah,
absolute pleasure. It's been lovely chatting to you.
So what a fun chat with someone who I really admire and look up to, Nick Cope. Again, check out the shows on the iPlayer if you have it. Look him up on YouTube if you don't. And even if you don't have little kids, I am sure you will find something that resonates with you at some level in his very family-friendly songs. And if, like Percy, you reach the heady age of 5 years old and think maybe you've outgrown the Popcast, fear not, because there's also lots of great indie music available from his band, The Candy Skins, which clearly has equal appeal. Again, if you've enjoyed the show, please let me know. Drop me a message at UkeTeacher@grabyourUke.com, as I do reply to all the emails that I receive, eventually. And if you're after some bonus content, sign up to patreon.com/UkeTeacher, and you'll find extra conversation with James Hill, Christopher Davis Shannon, Abby Lyons, Cynthia Lynn, and more. In fact, there's some extra chat with Victoria Vox that I've been meaning to put up for a little while, so keep an eye out for that too over the coming days. And please, please spread the word and let your uke-loving friends and family know about the Ukulele Tales podcast. Podcast. Available in all the usual podcasty places, as in order to be able to keep doing it, I need people to keep listening to it. Now, I've been to several festivals and things over the summer and heard from people in person just how much you guys are enjoying it. But if you'll also tell your friends about the show, that would really be amazing. Okay, I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another fun episode for you. Until then, another big thank you to Carla for sponsoring the show. They make lovely ukuleles and guitars, and if you'd like a 10% discount on anything on their website, please go ahead and visit my special link in the show notes, carlabrand.com/UkeTeacher. And now, until next time, I love you all, and I wish you the best.